Chair, you have a quorum.
You. Does anyone have any issues with the agenda as written?
No.
No. All right, then we can start with our first round of public comment. Do we have anyone online or is it just in the room here?
Check my Zoom. We have 2 online. No one has raised their hands. We have at least 1 person who has signed up in the room.
Okay, then let's see. It's now time for public comment portion of the meeting. Please remember, public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item. If you're joining virtually and would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in the webinar control panel. If you're using a telephone, press *9. You will be called upon and asked for you to state your full name and city of residence for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and you'll be given a 20-second warning when your 3 minutes are almost up. At the 3-minute mark, the chair will ask you to wrap up your final sentence and you may resume watching the meeting or end your participation at the time. Okay.
Go ahead, Todd.
Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Bachman. I live at 4767 Beverly Lane in Erie, or in Erie zip code, I should say. And first of all, thanks everyone for doing this, because I saw how many meetings you guys have attended thus far, and you get more to come. It's a ton, and it's thankless. And I'm here now to, of course, criticize what you've done. So, as I said, I have an Erie zip code, but I don't live in Erie. And my worry is in that giving yourself the ability to self-govern. I worry that you're taking away mine, and that seems a little bit crazy. But my concern is with section 1202 of your proposed charter for eminent domain, which says the town shall have the right of eminent domain for all municipal purposes, either within or without the town. And so as someone who lives just outside the town, this gives me great pause, because I don't get a say in this government. None of you represent the people outside the town of Erie, and yet you're giving yourself the power to take that land. And it may seem crazy to think that this would happen, but lest we forget that Lafayette used their power of eminent domain outside of their city limits to try to take land from Erie. And Erie is a town. My neighbors and myself, we don't live in a town. We have no municipality that's going to stand up for us. My guess is we will have no rights if someone decides that we're a nuisance and we should just be part of it, or they want our water rights, which we do have, or any number of things. And we're coming up with a town charter that prevents all future abuses from potential town council. So I don't think the current one would do this. I don't think the next one would do this. But town administrations change, town leadership changes, and it gives me concern that we would give Erie the right to take land from its neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else?
It doesn't appear that anyone else has signed up for public comment at this time, and no one on the participating via Zoom has raised their hand.
Okay,
So you can move on to.
I guess, yeah, we can close public comment at this time, and we'll have another section for public comment at the end of the meeting, just so we can make sure catch as many people and their schedules as possible. Okay, I know we've got a lot of stuff mostly hashed out, and I think we had a few pending questions, at least administratively, for how we wanted to do things as we go forward. I know, Amy, you sent an email regarding 2 options for the presentation, right?
Yes, I did. Given that you need to do a presentation, a formal presentation to the board, Kendra, our legal counsel, has suggested that that can take quite a bit of time. And we need a special meeting for the board with nothing else on that item, nothing else on that agenda. Malcolm and I looked at the calendars. We thought that having it on April 20th might be, which was what we had kind of originally planned, was that Thursday, might be a little bit too close, considering you guys are having your formal public hearing. And then you'll need to, the next meeting, that's on April 6th. Your next one is
The 13th.
Thank you. The 13th. to go through any public comments and do the final drafting. And then you have to have in your meeting a formal vote adoption or approval, I should say, of the proposed charter that you're going to take to the board. So to try and get that done by the 20th would be difficult because you'd have to go through all any edits and drafts that you want to make on the 13th.
And have the vote.
Yeah, and have the vote. So Malcolm and I looked at the schedule and we suggested we could either do a special meeting with the Board of Trustees on April 27th, or that next week, they don't have a regular meeting the first week of the month. It's on a Tuesday, which is reserved for the URA board, but currently the URA board has nothing on their agenda. So you could choose either the Thursday, the 27th, or Tuesday, the 2nd of May.
Was it the one, I thought it was the week before that. If our last meeting is the 20th, then you're talking about the first Tuesday. of
The first Tuesday, yeah, they do have a meeting on April 25th. Thank you.
Okay.
So it would not, you couldn't do that one. It would either have to be the Thursday, the 27th, or Tuesday. The reason Malcolm and I thought Tuesday might be good is because the trustees are used to having Tuesday night meetings.
So are we, as far as like the schedule, we had like a limit from when we're supposed to present to
May
the board.
6th.
May 6th. Okay,
So that has you presenting to your formal.
right. And is there any action on the Board of Trustees side other than just saying thank you and put it on the ballot?
Yeah, ultimately, they set the date for the election, which would be the November election.
Okay.
I don't know if they do it at that meeting.
No,
or
they don't.
later.
I think we have it on their schedule to do it later in May.
Right.
They have to do a resolution to put it on the election or put it on the ballot.
So at that meeting, they would essentially just accept the proposed charter.
Okay. Any thoughts from the commission?
How long do we expect that meeting to be? I mean, is it like a 5-minute, here's our thing? Hopefully you read it beforehand, or are we gonna read it to them?
Well, I would
think those-
suggest you use it as an opportunity to really describe the different sections of the charter. It could be a meeting that we then will certainly be videotaping it, and then we could link to those tapes on the town's website. So anybody who is interested in seeing or getting more information from the charter commission about the charter could be able to view that meeting. So it could be an opportunity for explaining why you did the different things you did.
Yeah, I think as staff, we kind of envisioned that you would have like a PowerPoint with bullet points. I'd be happy to help put that. You give me the content and I can drop it in our template. But it would be more of you wouldn't just read the charter to them. It would be more of a,
Presentation.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, are we looking at the Tuesday, the 25th or Thursday, the 27th? Is that the dates?
Thursday, the 27th, or Tuesday, May 2nd.
Oh. I was way up.
Yeah, does anyone have any schedule conflicts for
I'll
calendar
be out
in
of the
front of me.
country the week of the 23rd. So
your what?
27th, I'm out of the country. I
Okay,
won't be here on the 27th.
Or the second, probably.
I'll
Where
be
you
back by the 2nd. I'm coming back right before that. So I'll be freshly back.
anyone on this side?
I'm good on those dates. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good on both of those days, I think.
So we would not have a meeting if everything went well on the 20th, we would finalize and vote, and then we wouldn't have a meeting on the 27th. Unless we have this special meeting.
Correct. Yeah.
And we can expect like full participation from the board on either date.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think we've,
Okay,
and dinner. I'll
When
get
do
you
you-
guys dinner.
When do you need to know by?
Um,
Can we get back to you via email?
yeah, I
Yes,
think
yeah.
Brian needs to check his.
And Sarah would too.
yeah,
we'd wanna
yeah,
get-
you absolutely.
Cause
You'll-
I know we at least have one absence now on the 27th, so I'd be
Mhm.
leaning towards the 2nd just to make sure we could all be there, but
Just wanna
we'll
make sure
confirm with,
that-
yeah,
Yeah.
confirm with you and Sarah. And
Yeah,
get
yeah,
back to you.
I absolutely, email to me
Okay,
next week would be great.
all right, thank you. Let's see. And then I guess for how many people would be able to make our, like our study session this Saturday with the Board of Trustees?
That's this Saturday, right?
Yeah.
I plan on going.
Okay, you can't make it.
I'll be there
I won't be. You won't?
if I remember.
It's up in the air, but I think so.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Okay. Then I guess in general, we kind of wanted to come up with a plan on what we wanted to discuss rather than just leaving it as a full open discussion, because there's a lot of things that are gonna be specific to like how things are done that we'd want to make sure we're accounting for in the drafting of the charter. So I'll collect, I mean, I don't want to, not right now, but let's try to put together a list of questions and topics we want to cover by tomorrow midday-ish. And then we can send it over to the board so they have a chance to prepare responses or anything like that. Sorry.
I think I'd be more interested to hear about their feedback.
Yeah.
In the sense of, what do you
Okay.
see? Do you see something that's
General feedback.
general feedback? And do you see something that's just not right here, won't align, won't?
Yeah.
you
My
know?
biggest fear is a potential sour grape. And someone deciding that there's something in there that they don't like, and then potentially putting a wrench in the last 14, 15 weeks that we've been doing.
It's just their opinion, really.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
It's their point of view as the governing body who know how things work right now. And whether we put anything in here that throws up like an immediate red flag, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And they've had the opportunity to give public comment as well, and some have.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about that concern. I do appreciate it, but I'm
Okay.
not worried about it.
All right, then, yeah, I'll try to put together just kind of a schedule, or not a schedule, but like a list of topics, including that, just like the general feedback and any other specific questions or anything like that. And even if you won't be there, I'll be happy to present for you or anything like that.
So I guess I want to back up a little bit. When did our position change on seeking input from the
I
board?
was wondering that too. I'm confused.
Because at the very last meeting, I brought up that we should do it. And the opinion of the collective was, we're here to write the charter. And if we give special consideration to any group, I very much value the opinion of the trustees, but I suggested we do it and I was shot down. So why are we now doing it?
I guess we had feedback in the interim that they were willing to provide feedback
Right.
and wanted more. I don't know. It was surprising as well, but I felt like if there was a chance then to get the more feedback, like you, I thought it had
Yeah.
been settled.
Yeah. It feels like something changed between then and now. Like, did they send any? I didn't get an email or any kind of indication other than these are the dates that they're available. So
Yeah.
why is our opinion now that we're going to do this? I'm happy to do it. I'm not against it. I just am confused about how we got to this point, and there hasn't been any discussion amongst us of yes, we should, because that was floated and it was shot right down.
Okay,
Why are we doing
that's
it?
true.
Yeah, I was under the impression that we had decided that we were elected to write the charter and that all members of the community, including trustees and mayors, would be welcome at all meetings, of course, to provide public comment. And the hope was that they're following along and kind of already have an idea of what's going on with these meetings each week. And so if there was concern that they would be bringing those to us at public comment. So I'm confused too.
Okay.
I don't know, was there something that sparked that email, that conversation, or what are we missing?
The mayor contacted me and asked if I thought it was a good idea for the board to talk with the commission, and I said the commission has discussed that but decided they didn't want to pursue it, but I asked him to talk with the commission chair, and I believe the mayor and the commission chair talked. So
Yeah, he called me and he said that he could provide further feedback, and he talked to some of the other trustees who wanted to discuss in more like structured form, more back and forth, rather than just a public comment where they speak at us for 3 minutes at a time.
Similar to what we did when we bring in
Yeah.
experts. They're currently the governing body and they're experts that we have for governing the town right now.
Yeah, and this is kind of on me, but yeah, I thought that after we had that discussion with planning commission, how much more useful that was to have, to be able to have an active discussion rather than just.
For certain. And for example, Bob went and talked to the folks at the senior center or at the community center. And so that was an opportunity for back and forth. It's above and beyond standard protocol. So I think it's great. I just was a bit blindsided by the change. Now, I'm all for it. I can't make it on Saturday, but I'm all for that type of exchange and any opportunity for us to incorporate feedback, especially since quite a bit of it relates to what their commitment is to the town and what they receive from and give to the town for that.
Because we are asking them for more.
Yeah. And so if you're asking for any feedback of what we think you should talk about, I think it's number one, like these people are personally affected by this.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Is there anybody here who's against it? Okay.
Hillary was the one who pretty much shot me down right away. So our lawyer was against it.
I mean, if it's just suggestions.
Sure, yeah,
No
yeah.
decisions are made.
Yeah.
Is
And
that meeting publicized?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it'll be a full meeting.
I
of
just
the
want to make
commission.
sure that there's.
With more than 3 of either group. has.
Yeah, we'll have to. keep it.
It will, Gabby will also be there and she will live stream it on
Okay.
YouTube like.
And
these
it's
are.
at the community center. I think I saw
Community
it.
center, Mitchell Room.
And it would be advertised just as a study session. So it's not like you can take, either body can take action. It's just a discussion.
Right.
Cool. Go for
So
it.
you said your question was just mainly along the lines of what the charter is asking from them. And then-
Yeah, I mean, if you have an opportunity to speak to the trustees who we have written specific things about, requiring them to extend their terms or shorten their terms and pay was one of the topics that we were discussing. I would love to hear their feedback.
Okay.
I also think that we should include what the idea that we've been kind of floating around as far as providing our list of things we'd love to see happen and kind of our ideas and where we were seeing things go, but not necessarily one to put in the charter.
Mhm.
So that's a really good opportunity to have a discussion about that, not necessarily all of the details of it, but just that, this was kind of what we were thinking. Would you be open to this?
And yeah, when Amy mentioned that we'd be doing a kind of a PowerPoint presentation, I figured that would be one of the things we could add in there as well.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
When we present in late April, early May.
Yeah.
But just remember, we don't have much time between now and then.
It's a month and a half.
Yeah.
No, I thought we were talking.
Yeah, we
Oh,
gotta
for
be
our
mostly,
meeting on
we gotta,
Saturday.
oh, yeah. And we've got to be mostly like feature complete and signed and approved by mid-April. So,
Yeah,
A month.
I thought we were talking about 2 days from now.
yeah, the study session will be 2
Yeah,
days.
we won't be, I guess, going for details of what our ideas are, but
Yeah.
we've all thought of the ideas that we
Yeah.
haven't implemented yet. So
But if we're going to do a PowerPoint presentation, someone has to start working on it.
Oh, no, not for this Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
this was for more of the
I knew the other
the
one.
final presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we should be floating PowerPoint amongst us anyway.
Yes.
This is, I'd like to hear about marketing plans for the campaign beyond when it goes on, because are the trustees and the town going to have the same position that they had when home rule was put on, forming this commission was put on the ballot? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, will the town marketing department be able to assist with the campaign?
I think that's a legal question, and at some point, we can't weigh in on a measure that's on the ballot. I don't know what the cutoff time for that is. That's what I was suggesting. We can have materials that address questions that have come up, background information, but actively campaigning for it or against it, that needs to be outside of the town, because we can't use public resources. for
Right,
that
so
kind of
anything that we create might be used as campaign materials. or we ourselves might form a issue committee or try to get the word out about what it means, because people will be paying attention a lot more closer to the vote date than the middle of summer. So I think that the more carefully we craft and fully explain the differences between statutory towns and home rule towns and what this charter does in a PowerPoint presentation, that's fodder for any campaign, which could be great.
And I mean, yeah, even from the town's marketing department, like, I don't think we really want you guys to like campaign for or against, but provide the information, because we've generated so much of it, and the PowerPoint, our final presentation, the charter, like things like that would be just more from an informative side than.
Right. Yeah, basically the town staff or anybody using town resources, all we can do is respond to questions. Provide factual responses to those.
After a certain point.
Right.
Okay. So what is that cutoff? That's a question for
Hillary.
Yeah.
Yeah, even now, we can't be campaigning for something. We're just providing information.
Yeah, I mean, we're still considered commissioners until this thing is either approved or turned down, even upon a second vote. So we still have to keep that in mind.
Oh, wait, so that means that we can't participate in campaigning.
That's
my understanding.
I wouldn't feel right about that.
that would be my understanding of it. Until we're disbanded, dissolved, we're still considered.
We're not paid by the town.
No,
I guess
but we're in a.
But it's still like
Yeah.
a board,
Where
it's still like a board, like
Yeah.
we have to follow certain rules,
no, I expect
About
we could
meeting.
have like a question and answer session and things like that.
probably.
Yeah.
So we can have community information sessions, but I don't think we can do anything like an issues committee.
Yeah, we'd be able to, again, same as town, provide information from
Right.
our,
But again, let's talk to Hillary.
yeah,
And when I asked the question last time, I thought she had said, we're basically done after the 20th.
We're done drafting.
Right now, but I think,
the
I
context
thought
for
she had said
that,
we're done.
the context for that was more.
I would
along
hope
the
it's not
lines-
the case, but I thought that's what she said.
The context was like regarding like the substance of the charter. That's like not, we were
Well,
done with the charter.
I thought it was even asking about things like, I don't believe I used the word promoting, but information. And I'm not sure if we're allowed to. I would love to.
Okay,
I think it makes sense to.
yeah, that's a
but
good
I
question.
just don't know what the law is.
We need that clarity. Okay. I know, like, we had various questions from other people coming off of our last meeting. One of the things, Malcolm, you had sent an email regarding the transition timeframe. I think one of the main concern we'd had about doing it that way was the complexity it would involve, because we'd be going to a district-based system with some who had not been elected under the districts. And that would cause like vacancy filling and things like that to be way more complex, and we'd have to basically put in like transition period vacancy stipulations as well.
Yeah, my thought on that, and I thought a lot about it too, was that unless the board wanted to hire a consultant early on and start drafting the districts now, so that we would have those by completion and we could write in all of that and we would know where those two other trustees were going to end up in districts, so we could write a transition based on that. I don't know how else it would work, and I don't really feel comfortable asking for those funds ahead of time, knowing that
We
the
don't know
home
if
rule
it's-
was so close on the ballot to begin with. You know, it's not a guarantee. So that's kind of where I thought a lot about it all weekend too. And that's kind of where I landed with it.
Anyone else?
I didn't make a response to the email, but that was my concern of the districting. So
Yeah, because it makes things a lot more complex for moving to that, like from an at-large system to a districted system.
I think it only makes it complex if the two end up in the same district.
And their terms would end
Their
But
terms end
they-
the same
at the same
time.
time.
Yeah.
They were
They
elected
do,
at
but that
large.
would be
Right.
at that time.
They weren't elected by their district. They were
Right.
elected at large.
But we can assign
All
them
right, I
to a
see.
district for the transition.
We would have to
We
know what the
could,
districts
yes.
are though.
Right, that's true.
That's the
That's
hang
the
up is we would need to know by the 20th what those districts look like. And unless we're gonna ask for the money ahead of time, which I feel like is a pretty big ask.
There'd only be
I'm
two,
not
so
sure
they could
we
end up
would.
in the same district.
There
I'm
are,
not They're
And that
pretty
would
far
also
apart.
limit who can run, because if those district seats are already taken, then.
Yeah.
it
Right.
takes from
I mean,
those
ideally, I'm
districts
hoping
can't
that
Run.
people who are currently sitting will run again within their district and we will have some experienced people back on our board. That's ideal. Obviously, there's no way to guarantee that without leaving these two people in. So I don't know. It's
So-
tricky.
well, yeah, but there's two whose terms would go to January 27.
It's not an extension any longer than the other ones.
No, the extension's the same, but two of them would be up for election and, I'm sorry, most would be up for election anyway in the November 2024 election. We're talking about two
Yes.
that wouldn't
Two
be.
would continue through, yeah.
And in the worst case, and it depends how the districts are formed, those two would be in the same district, which means that district would not have an election until 26.
Well, and then in that transition, if they were in the same one, we would have to state that in just that district, there'd be two people being elected and the person with the highest number of votes would get the 4-year term and the person with the lower would get, so that they could then
Right,
join everybody else.
which I
right,
think we
28.
already
I think we already
said for
have
something else.
Yeah, that's.
The-
if there's
that for
two
vacancies, we
vacancies
said
in
the same thing.
Right.
So I think we've already had that covered. So while I agree it's not as ideal, it is a transition period, a one-time event. And so I'm okay letting those two, wherever district they end up with, having their
Continue.
district election maybe be for one person or whatever.
Or potentially, yeah, because I mean, we have no idea how those will look, so they could end up in the same.
Right,
district.
exactly. That's why yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure this has been dealt with before in other transitions. I'd be happy to do some research and outline some possibilities. One, just thinking out loud, which is dangerous. I'm thinking you could write a fairly simple transition provision that would apply to those two positions.
Right.
But I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I guessing it's been dealt with before in other home rule charters. And I'd be happy to research that for you and bring something back for the board, for the commission to consider.
Because I think the biggest argument that I saw from your email in favor was continuity, like just
Right.
having a full new board. It could, I mean, potentially we could have completely new board.
Yeah.
Or council.
As Commissioner Whitehouse suggested, the chances of that being a problem are relatively small. But there's a chance.
Yeah.
So,
And the fact that it's two and not three, where we're talking now about two per
Yeah.
district, makes it easier.
That does help.
and the two trustees that would be subject to those provisions live in different parts of the town. So it's likely that they would be in different districts as well, depending on how the districts
Yeah,
Right.
are.
yeah, we can't count on that because
Right.
none of us are districting
Exactly.
experts. So we have to plan for both being in the same district or being in separate districts. We have to,
There's also the possibility that one of those two people would want to run for mayor, in which case they couldn't hold their position in our new charter.
In which case they would resign and it would be a vacancy that gets filled.
I'm just saying.
So, yeah,
There's
No,
other
but
possibilities,
I-
but yeah.
I guess all I'm saying is I think it's manageable because it's two.
okay, yeah, I'd be happy to see what you could dig up,
Okay.
Malcolm. I'll look myself as well, and if anyone has some time to think about that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Ben, I believe you had some concerns you wanted to bring up today as well.
Yeah, we ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Notes. So we decided on even year elections. In November, we decided on districts. And we didn't make a decision on payments. And one of my arguments for the odd year elections is partisanship. We have nonpartisan in the charter. So it's technically nonpartisan. But what we're setting up, in my opinion, is all the seeds for highly partisan elections. November, even year, presidential, it can be messy. So everyone in this town will have to deal with a year and a half of national campaign shenanigans from everyone. So there's going to be that sort of piece with the districts. One of the arguments against districts is that lower, what is it? Our lower pool for candidates. I think it's valid. I think districts are still worth it, but that is one of the downsides of the district is you reduce your candidate pool. And because we're not making any comments on how elections are run or changing pay, I feel like we're going to be getting candidates who are very passionate on both sides, which causes the partisan divide. You don't really get that compromise that you need in a functioning government. So my ideas, we brought it up before, some sort of ranked choice voting is hard. Getting that into the charter is difficult. I think that could work somehow, or increasing pay. Because if it's worth it for the people who aren't extremely passionate and want to get their agenda pushed through no matter what, they want to help the town, then having some sort of reasonable compensation. That is one thing I want to talk with the board members. I don't want to ask if they think it's reasonable. I just want to know how many hours they put in a month. And then we can all do the math from there. If we think that's reasonable. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point for kind of an argument for codifying the pay or doing something with elections. Ideally, I'd do both, but again, I'm not the dictator of here. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention. And I know all of us want nonpartisan elections, but we can't pretend that they're going to be nonpartisan if we just keep the status quo. That's what I wanted to bring up. So.
I think specifically on the voting, I'm still a big fan of putting ranked choice voting in the charter. I know that we don't have the infrastructure in place right now for the town to do it either alone or in coordinated elections. There's state laws that have been passed that should allow for it in the near future, like in the short term. And so it's for multi-county towns, the deadline is 2026, I believe. And it's this year for towns in single county, 2025 was, and single town in single counties, it's this year. And so it's clearly a push from state level on down to local. And so if we're planning for that to happen in the near future, we can either give the town council the power to change the voting method by ordinance, which can get iffy, or we can say that we will use it once the resources and the processes are available to use it, considering, the cost savings and all of that for the town to do it in coordinated elections, things like that.
And one, in full transparency, part of that ranked choice law is that the town would pay more for the extra processing required. So it is a more expensive election, doesn't quantify it, but Weld and Boulder County will say, oh, normal elections are this much, ranked choice is this adder. You owe us the adder. So it is more expensive, but in my opinion, no one's gonna like this, anyone here. It would almost be worth it for the town to run their own elections. That's how strongly I feel about it.
So we could put something,
I knew you wouldn't like it. I'm glad Debbie's not
could
here.
put something in saying when the infrastructure is allowed, the other concern is districts, particularly if they get any smaller than 3, which I don't believe we're talking about. Some of the proportional election with a smaller pool get more difficult.
Yeah,
And so I would be in favor of saying, when the infrastructure allows, we will go to, and then we have to figure out what the 2 is from the different types that we've discussed.
I mean, a thought that I had could say, if we do none of these, I think there should be a provision saying we elect people using first past the post voting and we own it. Or we say we just use generalized ranked choice. The specifics, there are many different ranked choice is a general term. People use it specifically for generally, what's it called? Instant runoff.
right.
But it's technically a general term. So
We can look at, the state law requires specific, I think
the state law calls it ranked choice voting is first past the instant runoff
Right.
by state law definition, but broad definition in the world of at least Wikipedia.
okay,
So it could be one of those things where you define it as any sort of ranked voting.
right. And the town.
That was my
can-
point of the 2.
Yeah. So.
And then it could, like anything else in the charter, it can be amended by vote.
I did think about saying if it was by ordinance, but that feels like it could be changed too rapidly.
Yeah, that was my concern with leaving it up to council to be able to change the
say
voting method by ordinance.
Council shall set voting method by ordinance. It doesn't, that's 7 people deciding how the town votes.
Yeah.
I think the town should vote how the town votes.
I have some concerns with this, a lot, actually. The first thing is, I don't know that it's smart for us to codify this, because what if they start doing it and they're like, oh gosh, this doesn't work well with whatever, for whatever reason. Then they have to go and amend the charter. My second concern, which is really my biggest concern, is that from what I've heard from people, residents, if we put this in, we will have people lobbying against passing the charter. I really feel strongly that this would kill it.
More than districts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
I think you get the charter, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I think get the charter passed. And if they want to amend it after it actually does occur in 25 or 26, then it can be amended then. But if we don't get the charter passed, you can't amend it.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what is the kind of the downside of ranked choice? Like, from you two who have maybe had some conversations with people, and I'm completely neutral on this topic. But I'm curious what arguments against ranked choice voting are.
I mean, I haven't gone into great detail with people, and I don't know that I'm necessarily against it either, but this is just what I've heard from residents. Is that if they don't want that.
They're generally against it, but not necessarily for any specific reason.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to ask, I don't know.
Yeah, I think part of it may be due to the number of different types of it. there's confusion as to what it means. And I think some people may feel that it dilutes more rather than helping. I'm not one of those, but I think it's like a lot of different things. It's sort of murky. And if people don't understand it, typically the reaction is to be against something you don't understand.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, one of the downsides as well is it's kind of a race to the middle, which I feel like is better than a race to either side, but that is one major downside of it is you kind of muddy everyone's just a super moderate who doesn't have strong opinions. So
What we could
It's
say
not-
in the
yeah.
charter is once the infrastructure is available, the town will put to an election as to whether or not it should be adopted. It's just off the top of my head. So we're not saying,
We're not saying we would do it, but
we're
once
saying
the
that it's
infrastructure-
important enough that the town should decide. We can't decide today because the infrastructure is not there.
Yeah, and we have no. I mean, even the timeline, the state law, like you pointed out, it says that counties may have,
yeah, there's nothing forcing either Boulder or Weld to actually implement this. I think
Yeah.
Boulder already has, but
and so
Anyway,
this,
it's just a
yeah,
thought.
this leaves it more up to,
I don't think we can put anything on forcing ballot issues, though.
hmm,
We'd have to word that very carefully.
Would that be really any different than leaving it up to ordinance?
Yes, because it forces a town vote rather than a political vote.
But ordinance, you have to have public comment, right? Or you would
But
have
it's
to
not a
have-
vote.
yeah, they don't, council wouldn't have to like listen to public comments.
This is true.
I don't want to make it easy to change the voting method, even if it's first past the post.
Yeah,
Like that gets murky.
yeah, because if we can change it every single election.
Yeah, we change
People
it
will
every
get
election.
confused and it,
Right,
not a
that's
good
why I
look.
think it should be a ballot measure rather than an ordinance.
so I think like,
I mean, I may be totally wrong as whether that's a practical suggestion.
I think as far as us being able to put ballot measures on the ballot, I think you discovered last time with Hillary that we can,
Yes, you can.
we have that power. I don't know, but that was usually the
So
example.
with doing, the
Future.
way I look
Yeah.
at that is you gotta watch.
Yeah.
if that was an easy
Required.
one line change this line to this line.
Yeah.
If it's woven into it, it makes it much more complex to do.
We could certainly do that with pay. I feel like,
Yeah, that's an easy one. to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
You
Like
can
just
totally, you
have
can
the-
have. two-
Yeah,
you
just the
can-
section that says. And then have two opposing ones and town can choose which one they prefer.
Yeah, I wrote that up and I showed it to her. And it's basically like, this is
Mhm.
this and this is, change
Yeah.
this language. to
But
this
it's harder
language.
to do with a voting method.
I
Although-
think it,
Mm.
well, but the voting method. Pay is right now. The
Yeah.
voting method
Is a
is
future thing.
a future thing. I don't think we should write a future thing into the charter.
and I think that I'm misunderstanding. So Ben, what you said, there's like several different ways that you can do ranked choice voting. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, I feel like that makes things super complicated.
well,
Right.
pick one.
Yeah,
Did you
you would
Just-
define,
email that came in?
which one you'd want to use at the time.
Yeah, so for example, again,
Well, I got-
ranked choice voting, generally,
Paper on my name.
people assume instant runoff voting,
It looks like it's written that
I
the
think, yeah.
state required instant runoff.
instant runoff. We'll just assume it's instant runoff.
Yeah.
There's, yeah. Another option, again, I don't like it, but Brighton has runoff elections in December, which accomplishes the same thing with an extra election, which I don't think anyone wants to manage. So Brighton requires a majority vote for someone to become seated. So they need to get 50% plus one to become a counselor. And if they don't get that in November, then they do a runoff election. Ranked choice just puts that on one ballot and saves everyone time and money, and you get a majority vote. So that's how it works, but there's math involved in the back end, so it's harder to just see number higher winner because there's more behind the scenes, but it's still, the math is clear, like you can't cheat the system.
Vin, I agree with your concerns and I agree with everything you're saying, but to be realistic about this and what we can get accomplished in this charter, I think we have to be thinking about what's available right now. Now, I've already made my opinion clear on the odd versus even, and I'm not going to rehash that one. And I'm fine with whatever we decide. The ranked choice thing, we can't support until July 2026. It does say the counties are required to conduct an election using runoff voting if they receive the timely notice. So by 2026, it's not optional. Or I mean, the counties can't reject it. So it is possible, but right now is not 2026. And I don't want to be putting things in that trigger out in the future, because that could cause the charter not to pass.
I think it would cause the charter not to pass, to be completely honest.
I have gone back and forth on the pay thing so many times. I sent an email. I guess, Brian, your idea of putting it as an additional ballot item that says, should we then do this if it passes, is a tenable way to do it, which takes it out of the trustees' hands. It leaves it in our hands, but it doesn't jeopardize the passing of the charter. So if it's going to be there, I think that's the only way to do it. If it's not going to be there, I made an argument for it not to be there, just do it later. But Ben does make some valid points that we have a smaller candidate pool with districts, and we don't want to be encouraging people who are only there for their passionate politics. That's all I want to say about that.
Anyone else?
I agree. I mean, I'm highly in favor of increasing pay, but I'm also highly in favor of the charter passing. So whatever middle ground we can find there to do the best for both, I'm in support of.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a vote on whether or not to do it as an amendment?
I
Yeah,
actually would like to wait until after our study session, if that's okay.
Okay.
I think that they would have really valuable suggestions and ideas, and I think we should hear that before we make any moves.
Totally
Okay.
agree. Yep.
I would say,
Valid point.
let's leave it until next week, our next week meeting.
Jot that down as a go then.
It's still there. I didn't cross it out yet.
Do you want me to send out what I had written up? Just a small thing like, shall this be this?
Yeah, that would be useful to see the option we have. So like, I assume it's just keeping it with the set by ordinance, but then having a ballot question that says, would you
No,
want to adjust?
It was a straight up,
Okay,
do you want to replace this line of shall be set by ordinance with this, which is,
okay,
So we could kind of throw in like a filler section saying pay shall continue per previous,
We can put
Pay
in
rates.
whatever we want.
and then it's an easy, just insert, replace whatever it is.
it's like an immediate amendment.
Yeah,
It is immediate amendment.
right. Was that, do you remember? It wasn't clear in that email. Was that the second time the charter was put to a vote? And then
It
they added
was.
all so they rewrote it and then added all the amendments, or they kept the charter?
I don't know. Was there anything in 98?
I sent you what we had in our records from previous clerks.
And okay,
I don't, all we had was the records of the 99
okay,
ballot,
because that's what we can't tell whether it
Right.
was it,
right?
yeah,
I
or
don't-
they just resubmitted it with
with
additional
those,
questions.
yeah, I don't.
That's probably the easy way to do it. Like, it's the same charter, but these are the things that everyone had a problem with. Let's just see if we can swap these and.
Yeah.
That'd be my.
But I think
guess.
it's probably better to do them as line items.
Yeah, that's how it was. Each one was voted. on.
Yeah, right. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant different versions of the charter. We have like 17
Yeah,
different
they-
permutations.
Oh, yeah, no,
And
so
that-
it's like the
that's-
charter, yes or no, and then you can
Yes,
make
that's what-
amendments to
right,
just those
which is what they
specific
did
pieces. Yeah,
last time,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So
I
we,
thought Hillary expressed some concern about that
She
plan.
showed me right after that, you
Mhm.
can do it.
Okay,
It's doable.
but you're right, she did initially.
okay.
I was worried it wasn't legally allowed.
You can
Gotcha.
have,
Yeah.
2 different charters. You can have
Right.
multiple charters. You can
Ooh,
choose your
yeah.
own charter.
I'm suggesting, and that's what I was worried about.
So we have
It's
it
there. You
I
can-
am not in favor of that.
No.
On record right
Choose your own
now.
charter.
So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I think we need to be very careful on how we use that.
We shouldn't use it unless
Instant.
we really
Yeah.
feel that. It puts it in jeopardy of passing. And we want to pull that out.
I mean, if we're concerned about it passing, just stick with the original plan of the preamble and send it, right? Recommendation by CML.
Yeah.
Or just adopt by reference our existing code. Okay. So yeah, more thoughts, more decisions to make for next week. One of the things I actually was thinking about over this past week after we talked with the planning commission and the town staff who deals with planning. I think Kelly said at one point that the planning commission is just the voice of the people on future developments, right? And I was thinking about like, one of the concerns we always hear from people, like whenever stuff does get decided or gets put on to vote and things like that, or future developments get considered or proposed, it's often just developer proposing to town council. I'm wondering if there's a role in there to kind of, for the planning commission to actually be like a voice of the people to gather feedback on specific questions, because they know much further in advance when things like these are coming to vote, and actually have them empowered to go collect feedback and present as voice of the people to the town.
Wasn't the concern that they can't legally reject it if it's in the comp plan?
Right.
See,
If it, yeah, if it
It's
meets
the
the
UDC,
guidelines of the
so-
UDC, they can't
yeah.
legally reject
neither
it,
can-
neither can the
neither can
board
the Board of
though.
Trustees.
Right, but it's more along the lines of,
I thought they actually
The
have a
board,
little more leeway under home rule.
if it doesn't meet the guidelines that are required in the UDC, it cannot.
If it does meet, but I thought under home rule, if it does meet, they do have some additional leeway.
With home rule, you have a little bit more zoning flexibility, so you can set more directive into various areas that are going to be developed on what they should be developed as. But if someone's meeting what's been set, you can't deny it without some good legal reasoning. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
you can deny it and then go to court and defend that, but how much money are you going to spend to shut that down? It can happen. What about
Can-
a compromise to what you're saying? So instead of having the planning commission, not to prevent them from getting input from people, but instead of requiring that, one of the things that might have been nice is, as a trustee, when I sat up here and I heard development proposals, we would hear from the planning department and the developer, but the commissions, the only thing we heard about what the commission said was one like bullet on a slide item that said the planning commission approved this, votes for it to go forward with some kind of clarification or something, but there was no voice of the planning commission presented. Not that I don't know if we put it in the charter, but it might have been nice to hear, instead of going back and watching their meeting, to hear the chair wrap up the conversation.
Okay, because both the planning commission and OSTAP write letters supporting or, well, pro or against every development referral.
With lots of detail.
Yes.
Lots of detail. So you have to read through all of that stuff, because it's not just, there's many people submitting information into that packet.
Right. So I mean, if you look at the town website for each development referral, there's a whole lot of letters and things that go on. So, and all of the meetings where these things are discussed are open public meetings. So I think what you're talking about is maybe more a procedural thing to ensure that people understand what's on the agenda each time, but agendas are all posted in advance with the referrals that are being discussed.
Like,
Mr.
I
Chairman?
guess, sorry, yes.
One other thing to keep in mind is that both the Board of Trustees and the Planning Commission, when they're considering matters like this, it's a quasi judicial action. So all of the information needs to be presented in a public hearing. And communications outside of that are ex parte, and you're not supposed to do that. So gathering information, it all needs to be presented as part of the public record. So anybody who's wants to weigh in favor of or opposition to has the opportunity to do that during the public hearing. So it's intended to create openness in the process and equal access to the process. So you need to keep that in mind when you're trying to specify the provisions.
And all of those public hearings, they are not, they have to be noticed for all the residents that are near the development. They get letters from the developers,
Right.
as well as there's an actual sign that goes out in the middle of the or not in the middle of the property, so that people can see that and say that there's a public hearing on this. So
So I
And
guess,
so a sketch, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, it's more than just like the land developers and things like that. It's like when the town decides to do an improvement, like when they decided to put a, stoplight at County Road 7 and Erie Parkway, right? How did the feedback for that go? Like, it's not just for like the development side, but more for the town improvement that the town decides on. Because there's a lot of that people have thoughts on and feedback on, and it's kind of, rather than just being a civil engineer deciding, well, there's a traffic problem here, we need to fix traffic problems, let's make more lanes and wider and add, lights. There's more like town resident directed kind of improvement process for town initiated improvements rather than just like developer stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe that one may not be the best example, but when they wanted to make changes to County Line Road right in front of the schools, right between the schools, they asked for lots of feedback and spent a good amount of time receiving comments and spending open meetings discussing a lot of those comments. So it really, I think, depends on the impact of what's happening. So maybe you would answer this the same way, Malcolm, but there is an opportunity, and sometimes the town creates those opportunities knowing the public desire for feedback on specific town stuff. But that one stoplight at kind
That
of
one was an
7 and
obvious one because of just having so many issues around that.
yeah, and there was, it was also difficult to get the property owners in that area to participate too.
We actually do have the transportation example is a good one. We have a transportation master plan that was adopted through a process that involved community engagement. I would say I think the town's gotten better and better about doing community engagement over the years. We've gotten more sophisticated. We actually have hired staff to be able to conduct those operations, but we have master plans on open space, on transportation. We're doing a comprehensive plan update process now that involves significant outreach to the community. So there are, I would say, lots of opportunities for people to engage in various ways of making sure that the town is going forward in a way that reflects their interests.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that we have to put some responsibility on the people, right? Like, if you don't like something or you're worried about something or whatever the case is, same with these meetings right here, right? Come and give that public comment. I think we tend to put a lot of responsibility on the town for going out and knocking on people's doors and finding out what they want when the meetings are available, they're open, you just gotta come. So I don't know if it's necessarily that we need to create a way for more public outreach, but I would say if we're looking to go down this route at all, I would say a better focus would be how can we better educate the public on things that are coming up and where they should go and email addresses that they should send emails to for concern and those types of things. I think that's a bigger glitch maybe is that people aren't necessarily aware of stuff until it's happening and then they're like, what the heck? You know,
And by then it's too late because it's usually when things are already. under
right, so
construction.
that's been, yeah, so. That's my take on it. I could be
Okay.
totally off base, but
It was a thought just based on what Kelly had said about being the voice of the people for planning matters, so.
I mean, I like it. I like the idea. I just feel like that puts a huge burden on the town.
I'm also not sure it's something the charter would have.
Yeah, it's procedural stuff.
Okay. Did anyone else have any other kind of general ideas? I know we had some changes from last meeting that Hillary got back to us on.
Yeah, I think we should,
Let's see.
at some point, we should go through all the comments.
Yeah,
in
I
the
went,
draft.
I basically
I've been
went
waiting
through
for
like,
that last few weeks, but
I think she deleted a lot of them.
yeah,
Not
she,
that many comments
she
left.
she pared it down a lot. So like, in 204, she added the wording on the campaign finance ordinances that we want the town to maintain. I thought there might be a typo in there actually, because for 204, like in the middle there, such ordinance shall control over Article 28 of the Constitution of the State of Colorado. I'm not sure what that, it feels like there's a word missing in there somewhere.
no, I think it means that the ordinance takes precedence. But you may be right, there may be missing, but that's the way I read it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to clarify.
It show like control instead of Article 28. I think that's what she means by over, but it does read weird.
Yeah. I couldn't decide if it was one of those weird legalese phrases or if it really had a missing word. 307.
Okay, I'm sorry, backing up a little bit.
Yeah,
Did anybody have any issues with the change in 102,
Oh,
where
that's right.
she discussed the council manager form of government?
Yeah, I think we decided that we weren't gonna maintain like a separate definition section, just kind of put things in line where we wanted them.
Right.
This was in that vein, so
Just to make-
102,
yeah. Just to make sure no one had any disagreements with the word she used.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
But anyone else have any ideas or thoughts there?
No, but while we're there on that comment, rearranging article, I think Brian brought up early, putting elections after like swapping 2 and 3,
Yes, agreed.
Swapping 2 and 3.
because 3 is currently elected offices. And I think your argument was, what are we voting? And then how do we vote them in?
Yeah.
I just remember that if we wanted to swap them.
Any strong feelings against?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a
no, I
good
agree.
neutral
That
for,
was one of my comments.
okay. So we'll swap Article 3 and 4.
2 and 3.
2 and 3,
Two and
sorry.
three.
I'm paying attention, I swear.
It's the
Um,
time change.
Yeah, it was weird coming in here when it was bright outside.
I-
Okay, then 307. It was she had added, I guess, that emergency ordinances would require a roll call vote.
Yeah, but she made it, she made the wording say that a voice vote is permitted, so I think that's good.
Yeah,
At
she
all
said,
of the times.
yeah, we can use voice votes when necessary, except for monetary matters and emergency ordinances, basically.
Or requested. I think
Or-
she
But yeah, and people,
incorporated, I think, everything we asked for on that one.
yeah. I like the compact statement there.
Oh, and do we need to say announced and recorded, or is recorded just given?
I think it's just a given.
I would assume it's given, but we can ask her next week.
Amy might know.
Because somewhere else we said something had to be recorded for each person's vote had to be recorded. I thought.
By each person's vote having to be recorded, that's the voice vote. That's the voice vote.
Yeah, no,
So when you say voice vote, that means it's trustee one said yes, trustee two. said
Includes
yes.
recording.
Yeah.
Or are you just talking
Yeah, I'm
about,
just saying, does it automatically include recording or should we
I
say?
think they'll just say it passed.
Oh, yeah,
with
sorry, that's.
majority.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
It's the other way.
If
It's the other way
around, I know
It's-
what you
it's-
meant. but-
I'm with you, Ash. It's a little, so roll call vote is when you enter it into the minutes by name.
Right.
And a voice vote, it's just one or the other, and the outcome is announced, but it is always recorded in the minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't need to say it.
The
That
roll-
was my
The
question.
roll call implies it's being recorded as
Yeah.
is. Okay. Let's see. I think there was another,
Next was 308, the
Mhm.
ethics.
yeah, that was the new section. So we're gonna carry forward what we have currently. Because it's already in the code. And it requires that there is a way to enforce these and as well as enforce violations of the charter.
Yep.
So. I'm good with that. Then Article 4. Her comment there is mainly about there not being a hard definition of town officers. Though the fact that the people listed in this article are in an article titled town officers, that's probably enough. She'll confirm that, but as far as the appointments and removals require more than the majority of the town council president. This is one of those things that we were kind of going back and forth on, of like being consistent on the number of votes required to do various things. So we don't have to decide this now, but it's one of the things we have to keep in mind for our last pass on the charters, make sure we're consistent and that the votes that we want are done the way we want them with the right number of required approvals. And then 5014, do we want to at least say require planning commission and board of adjustments,
Yeah.
although that is
I just,
to,
I know that it's redundant because you could go look it up,
but just having it
but
here.
saying
means
it
it's-
here. I don't know, clarifies it.
And
I
it,
have no problem with that.
It'll future proof things. If
Yeah.
the statute is changed, I'm sorry, if the statute is changed.
Right.
It'll be another of those things where we're saying we will have it. So.
calling out the planning commission and board of adjustments.
Is there any concern protecting it? Let's do it that way. Is there any? Okay. And then say.
I mean, it's not, it doesn't change the substance of it because it's already required by state statute, but it
Right.
does call it out so people reading this know that it'll,
Always be.
it'll stay there and that it's required.
Will it be worded in such a way that if the council wants to be the planning commission, they're allowed to do that? Because there's some municipalities that do that, right? The council is the planning commission.
So you're saying, put in there, planning commission shall be a separate body.
No, I'm saying, well, I don't know. I'm saying we could word it in such a way that it needs to exist, but it could be a separate body or however the council decides it exists. So
Actually, yeah, because
if they decide they want to take it on, I mean, I think that's,
we call out elsewhere that if they want to be they can't be both
Oh, that's
because you
true.
can't be a
Yeah.
board member,
Yeah,
a commission
you're
member
right.
and a council member. So they can't individually do both, but you're saying some way for them to assume those responsibilities as is currently allowed by state
I-
statute.
feel like that got brought up somewhere that some
Yeah.
council does their own
It's,
planning.
yeah, it's one of the, the function of the planning commission has to be there,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have to be a separate board, a separate commission.
so if we word it in such a way to leave it open, or we could word it in a way where we force a separate commission. I don't have strong opinions. I just think we should word it carefully.
I think for the towns that I saw that had kind of the board doing more or the council doing more planning commission duties, it was when there were more full-time rather than our 2 times a month.
Yeah,
So,
I personally feel like the more opportunity we can have different residents in different areas, the better. I think that offers more representation townwide. And it doesn't allow for one body to run with.
yeah,
things.
take everything.
Suddenly we're full of 5-story buildings everywhere or something.
Yeah, I guess if we're gonna put it in there, that would be the place to put a line in there. It must be
A
Well,
separate-
must be a separate.
Well, if we call it out specifically that there will be a planning commission, that already means it has to be separate because they can't be a
Yeah.
council member and a commission member.
I think that's good.
Well, okay, this might be a can of worms. What about the URA? The URA is a commission that all of the trustees sit on, and there are a few additional people that sit on it.
Well, that's already
Are
been
we
a violation of the current ordinance then. Because I believe the current ordinance.
So now I'm looking to Malcolm, or probably,
Give to you, Malcolm.
The Urban Renewal Authority, there's specific state law that govern who can sit on that authority.
it's not an advisory board or a commission, so it's different. It's a state registered commissioner, something like that. It's not.
Yeah.
It feels different than these things we're talking about, but if we're gonna discuss wanting additional residents and participation for these various functions of town, the URA is definitely one that is currently populated by a board of trustees and a few extra people.
Do we want to, does it make sense to leave it that way though? Is there a good reason?
It
behind
doesn't, it works. Not,
it's-
some towns do it differently.
Yeah, some towns appoint an entirely different renewal authority board that's different from the council. And many of them have the council plus school districts, fire district or special districts and county representative. Those are the required, state required participation.
Okay, so I guess I want to make sure that we're not doing something weird with how we've worded this, so I wanted to ask Hillary then
I
about
think
that.
that, I think that when you open up that can though, you have to address
Yeah.
all of them.
Mhm.
So if you just leave it the way it is, or just say any board or commission that is not required with a statute, by statute or this charter, such as PC and BOA, may be abolished, and just like that's it.
That's
I think that's what she's suggesting
Yeah,
here.
that's all I was thinking,
I don't think she's suggesting all the rest of this.
right, I don't think well, I wasn't suggesting we do more on top of.
Well,
that.
saying that you can't, like as Ben suggested, it can't say that.
You can't be the same.
You can't be on the board can't assume the planning commission duties and then just call it a planning commission. So it's saying that type of stuff, I think, opens a can of worms.
Okay.
So it's already said though, right? That's already in our charter.
I think it is.
oh,
We already said that you can't be.
You can't be both. You
You
can't.
can't have both.
I thought that was more along the lines of employee. That's probably under elected offices and. This might take some homework.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. It might have been somewhere else, so we can look through it and make sure that we're not precluding something like the Urban Renewal Authority from having trustees sitting or council members sitting. But as far as this specific 5014, I think we were at least all in agreement that we wanted to just say, call out the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments as an example of a board or commission that is required by statute, just so that people reading this know that it's one of the things that will be there.
We have it in here.
304.
Yeah, 3043.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it was in there.
Yeah. Gotcha. Now I have a reference.
We're on the town board or.
I think we need to have Hillary look at this
Okay. So,
regarding URA.
so the question, I have for her is, have we precluded or prevented something like our current
Yeah, I don't know if our
form
current,
of the URA.
yeah, I don't know if current state statutory towns have a clause like this. I'm not sure. Maybe we have it in our UDC or not UDC, ordinance where we form boards and commissions. But putting it here in the charter might affect the URA. And
Okay.
so let's have her
Yeah, we'll
evaluate
have to
that.
go back and check that then.
Good point.
Yeah. Good catch.
Good catch.
I think then the next one was under 608. She says that there is a good argument to be made that we can allow fines and punishments for ordinance violations that are higher than the maximum established by Colorado statutes. And that would allow us to do things like levy higher fines for, violation of town ordinances. So that was one of the things that we had put off. Do we want to give the town the authority to increase the maximum fines beyond what's allowed by state statute?
I don't think we should take that option away. So my question was, do we just strike that, if we're going to go that way? Do we just strike that last sentence, or we could, as you said, that they may exceed? So there are a couple of options, but first, I guess the decision is, do we want to allow the town to be able to do something larger, a larger fine than the state allows? And I see no reason not to.
I support that as well.
Anyone have any thoughts else otherwise?
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
There's no
I
reason
mean,
we have
there's an
codes.
argument to be made that some of the state fines are slaps on the wrist for certain violations.
I think that's true. So one of the best ways to do it is just strike that last sentence.
Yeah, so again, I see the two options, either totally strike it or just change the wording to say that it may exceed rather than shall not exceed or whatever it was. Or take out the no at the font.
I think just strike it.
Just striking is easiest.
It's cleaner.
Yep.
And it doesn't create confusion.
Okay. I'm just striking that last sentence.
Freezing. I'm shivering. Oh, I shiver every meeting. so
I
that's
know,
what
it's
I
waiting
do.
for your jacket on.
I'm cold too. Don't worry.
Huh?
I'm cold too, Candace. Don't-
Oh, good. We need like a little bonfire.
Or the under table space heater.
I'm glad I'm not the only one this time.
And I think.
Is
Oh,
that it?
I was thinking OSTAP section would fit right after 10.
Yeah, I was gonna ask where people want it.
Because there's the public utilities franchise and use of public properties is currently Article 10. And then OSTAB would go into 11 right after that. So it kind of flows after that, or we could put it after the section talking about boards and commissions.
Which is 5, I think.
Huh?
Which is 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would
so
go.
either way is fine.
Any strong thoughts one way or the other from anyone?
I think it's fine after boards.
Huh?
I think it's fine after boards and commissions.
So as the new Article 6.
I wonder if Article 11 shouldn't be moved up.
Yeah, because it should be closer to ordinances.
Yeah, the initiative and referendum. That's,
and
I think
elections.
it probably should near elections. It'd probably make the most sense, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So 11 should go,
After elections,
so
But then
elections will
before-
go into,
let word take care of it actually.
Elections would end at 3.
elections would be 3.
But I think ordinance, because initiatives, referendums and recalls were also regarding ordinances.
Yeah,
Oh, so after
So
ordinance.
you should then have ordinances and then have
so we'll go with,
Words.
recalls and referendums.
right.
Yeah.
So 3 will be election, so 2 is town offices, then elections, then ordinances.
Then recalls
then
and
recall and
referendums,
referendum.
and then the boards, the rest of it as it's organized now. Well, OSTAP.
And then OSTAB would go after boards and
Perfect.
commissions.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
okay, so we'll do All right, so after 3. Yeah, I'll write it up and send it to Hillary then. Okay, I think that was it as far as,
I think,
One quick question when we were on
what's up?
post-tab.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure in the end if we decided we do want to move the definitions in line to make it the same as everything else, or just leave them.
No, we do want to.
I thought we wanted to move them in line, but
because they're not, some of that's not, it's only mentioned at the beginning, the native plants and things like that.
yeah, so that would be a good, if you could provide another draft of that. We can review it next week and have it.
You know, there's 2 302s.
she's gonna go through.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I told
just-
her that last
Okay.
time.
Right.
Because that was one thing that,
So I'd like to call out the eminent domain thing. We did have public comment about that today.
talk about
And
that too.
I think it's worth at least having a discussion about it.
So,
I did a little bit of research while we were sitting here, and we are not changing anything that the current statutory town already has.
Okay.
We're this eminent domain clause is carried in almost every other home rule charter that I could find. It's if we didn't even put it in here at all, the state allows it. It's definitely not an encouragement of use of that, but it is
And if,
in lots of other areas in this charter, it's just a restating of this charter's relationship to that state statute or capability.
and
so
the thought I had as far as that was like, by putting it into the charter, it becomes something that can be amended later by ballot measure if required.
okay, so Broomfield does say the same thing we do, almost identical words. But if you look at what sorry, it's encoded as to which town this was. It is Golden. Golden has something different where they basically just say city shall have the right, or the rest of the town shall have the right of eminent domain as provided by the Constitution and the statutes. So we could just leave it as that is another alternative.
So just kind of adopt by reference.
Right.
So if any,
In the end, it would be the same. I tried looking through the Constitution, the state constitution, didn't get all the way through it.
I found it. It's Article 2, Section 15 authorizes condemnation by public entities subject to payment of compensation for taking or damage to property.
right. Right, that was one of the discussions we'd had when we talked about this in a meeting, was that there's a.
It's like, I don't think we can even preclude it, like, because it's state constitution. I don't think we can say you can't. We couldn't
you
like
don't
tie the
have-
town's hands on that.
Right, we couldn't take away the power for
So
them
alignment
to,
with-
But the question was the outside of the town boundaries, making that explicit. I thought was what the comment was.
Brian, did you find, I thought we talked about this when we talked about eminent domain. There were some charters that had restrictions on it. And we just did this one because I think it was Eagles or whoever.
I was looking for that because
Do
I
you
had that
remember? I feel
spreadsheet.
like you.
I
brought that
don't
up.
remember, but because that's. I mean, it's certainly a concern of mine. I don't love the idea, but
Yeah,
I think then we should ask Hillary to do the research and say the town boundary thing being the only difference here, where we say, what is the state constitution regarding a municipality acting outside its boundaries for eminent domain?
right,
And is there anything we would put in the charter to adhere to that or not, or to say that we're not allowed to do that? I'm not sure that we even have a place in this position here, but, or when it comes to this type of a situation, but we might if it's outside the town boundaries.
but I mean, even in that scenario, what's stopping the town from annexing and then,
Well, you have to, in order to annex, the owner of the property has to agree to annex.
so if they did want eminent domain something, and we said it's not allowed outside town borders, they still have to work through the homeowner to annex it, then
Then they would,
Then
then they
eminent
could
domain.
take it. I don't know why a
not
homeowner
take
would
it,
annex,
paid it.
pay for
But
it.
yeah, no,
some sort of compensation.
I like
Well, eminent
Bob's
domain
idea.
always accompanies compensation,
Uh,
all the way around.
Sorry, no, I like Bob's idea that just calls out that whether it's in accordance with or alignment with, or whatever the wording is to be consistent to the other ways. Just to let people know that we're not taking any additional power than we're already given,
Then-
Constitution. With
by
the, yeah, with the
Constitution.
Constitution.
Yeah,
and
I
statute.
just found in Centennial, it's within and without, so. That's what most of them end up saying, is within and without.
Right.
But we could just, as I said, go back to the state constitution and just say we reserve the rights that we have.
I just think
I
we should
mean-
have the lawyer tell us why it says that in
Yeah.
all these other ones,
Yeah.
and
Especially specifically the part about outside town borders, because that's not necessarily given by constitution, right? Based on that statute.
I don't, I'm not reading the statute real well.
I'm vaguely remembering this, but you have to have, you just can't take it
Right.
to go.
There's a process. There's
There's a-
like a court order and or there's
And
there's
there's
an entire
reasons
process.
for
Adam said
the
it pretty
better
much.
of, what's that?
As Adam said, just you do eminent domain, which is just you start a lawsuit. That's how it kind of works.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
goes to the courts.
So it goes to
determine.
court and then it has to go through a
So
process and
there is a process. It's not,
Oh, yeah, my dad's going through it. We can't.
I
So
think
he's
we
he's
should
suing the
hear
town.
from Hillary on
Yeah,
this
I'm
before we
good
make
with
any
that.
changes.
okay,
so if
I'm a-
you
I'm aligned on that.
tell her she has some homework.
Okay, and then we are still going to be discussing these sections in the transition after our study.
Are we gonna have
session.
an opportunity for public comment again at the end of this?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, most of them do say.
and actually, I think that was all I had as far as our,
I know, that's what I was trying to find.
I mean, discussion.
Yeah,
from
I didn't have
emails and
anything else.
whatever. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to bring up before we go into our final public comment section?
I do.
Yes, go.
Back to 302.
Okay,
I thought we were gonna have some sort of trigger for redistricting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought we did too.
oh, yeah,
And the only, I sent out the one with Golden and what was the other town? Lakewood or Longmont. Where was that?
and yeah,
So
we're allowed to do
would
it
you want
based,
to add more information to 302.2 or have a full section that kind of describes redistricting?
It's what triggers a redistrict, because we're gonna be growing,
Right, yeah,
Rapidly.
so.
because 302.2 has, we may change or boundaries may be
It
changed.
says when needed.
yeah, so we want to put
So we want
in
to define needed.
And the
a
one I
hard criteria.
Yeah.
was, I can resend this again.
There was some like 15% difference in population between the most populous and least populous district.
Exactly.
15, I thought. I remember when we first talked about this early in our.
We were thinking
adventures,
5 or
We
something.
were,
Yeah,
there were
let
some
me
places
see.
that were 10 and I feel like there's some statutory thing too. And we were talking about 5. I don't,
Yeah. But we do want to reserve that right, or we want to actually force a
Force the
district.
hand, yeah.
Yeah.
If any of our, you know, any of our populations get that far out of whack. So we did want to add that to 302,
the first 302.
the first 302.
So I sent out the two that I found. Golden's is the most detailed.
Okay.
I'm sure there's others. I just didn't. I didn't come across them.
Did you send that to Hillary too?
I did the first time.
Okay,
That was sent out on
Yeah, I see
Saturday.
it.
March 11. At 4 p.m. So she can
okay,
find
so I mean, if you're looking at that email from Brian,
Yeah, I'm just reading this.
so at least though we are all in agreed that we want to be able to force that redistricting more
Probably
often,
should.
more often than the 10-year census, right?
Yeah. It should, I think it should be looked at more often.
Yeah, I agree. And I get Malcolm, what would we use as that trigger, like for our town population?
Probably the latest estimate from the state demographer's office.
Okay,
That's my guess. I'll have to research that one.
okay. Because I think that is something we were counting on with our decision to go to districts, so that we wouldn't be stuck to the 10-year time frame for redistricting. And
With-
Hillary said we do have that authority.
Yeah. With the redistricting, I know one of the concerns when we were talking about setting our own districts is the lawsuits that come up when people are unhappy with the districts, is using non-census data a much stronger
Reason. Yeah.
that, or was that a better argument in the courts? Because you can't really argue with the census, that's,
Right. That's the
but
official
if we're using, I don't know, I think,
estimates.
yeah.
So I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why there's a wider buffer for the triggering the redistricting, is because estimates, if they're not like hard numbers like a census is, but you need a larger error bound essentially.
Yeah.
Did anyone have thoughts on a number for population difference to trigger redistricting?
I want to know why they did 15. That feels high.
15.
I don't disagree with that.
I think 10 is my number
What's
that,
the difference between the 2010 census and the 2020 census? Like whatever that is.
it's if the population difference is by 10% or 15%
In a district, yeah,
in a district.
from the highest.
If we drew. Let me do some research. If we drew these districts, backed up time and then did a 10-year change, and we see how much change happened that we would have wanted to capture somewhere earlier than that. Does that make sense?
All of Erie Highlands, all of Colliers.
I mean, that would have taken what
Flat
Drew as
Iron,
district northeast, and it would have made it way heavy weighted. Like it probably would have like north, it would have been north, and then there would have been a southeast.
Because they, yeah, like that's northeast would have been one of the most emptiest
It
districts.
wouldn't have been a district.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it would have just been rolled into
So
something.
then there's some population difference that happened when those came in that should have triggered it ahead of a 10-year, or is 10 years enough time? That's,
Are you signing up for homework?
I do not. know. Lisa is gonna do it.
Okay, but we do want criteria in 302 for the redistricting trigger.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss next week on a specific number. Okay. I'll ask Hillary to put 10% as a placeholder for now between largest and smallest district. And then we can,
Oh, I'm sorry, go on.
we can.
You're not gonna be here.
Oh, we're spring break next week, right?
Yeah.
Are we holding a meeting?
Yes.
Well, you guys will do great.
We figured that, I think we realized we took a poll and it was just like 2 people would be missing. per
Me and
week
Brian are both gone.
For next week, and then the week after was 1 person maybe.
Me.
Okay.
So. Okay, so we'll add it and then we'll discuss it. And I think that was it as far as I had. Anyone have anything else? Do we have our recap now? Okay, yeah, let me do our recap and then we'll reopen for public comment because I'm sure we have some more. Okay, so we have a whole set of questions we wanted to ask. Or at least get the current board's feedback on this Saturday. We want to ask Hillary specifically about eminent domain around outside of town limits. That there's some cutoff for marketing that the town can do regarding something that's going to be voted on, and we need to know the specifics on that and what the town and commissioners can do. We have a new ordering of the sections, which I need to go back and send her, and I'll send to Hillary. 5014, we want to call out the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments as examples of current boards required by law. We want to make sure we didn't, with 3043, that we didn't open a can of worms around something like the Urban Renewal Authority. By banning council members from sitting on boards or commissions. In 608, we do want the town to be able to levy higher fines than the maximum are allowed by state statute, which would be striking the last sentence of 608. And then in 302, we want to add an automatic trigger for redistricting. We'll set a placeholder for 10% difference in population based on whatever estimate the town uses between the largest and smallest districts. And I think that's it.
One thing on vacancies, it's not stated in here. But either way, whether appointed from the previous vote getters or goes to a special election, that's to fill the remainder of that entire term, or does it?
No, I think there's
the
phrasing in
election.
there till the next regular election.
Yeah.
So even if if someone,
Should if
For- you're thinking
it's
the
a special
special election?
election, should we just let it go the entire term?
Isn't that kind of our argument for November elections, is you get better turnout?
yeah,
So
because
you
if we
might
do a
get
special election, we're
low
gonna get a
turnout.
lower.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
I was just. Yeah, no, I'm not necessarily saying.
yeah, I
But-
get your point.
Yeah, if they're 1 year in and there's still 3 to go,
They only get to sit, based on how it's written now, they only get to sit one more year until our next November election.
well, if they're given a special election, should they be allowed to go to 3 and keep that term? I'm just bringing it up as a thought. It's not stated in here, so it could be interpreted either way.
It is, though, it is stated that because if you're filling a term of someone else,
But that's the entire term.
right, if you're filling filling a vacated seat, and it doesn't say how you got there, whether appointed or special elected, you only go till the next,
following election.
the next regular municipal election. So as it's written now, they only get till the next even year election in November.
Okay.
If we want to extend it, we can, but I think the argument we had at that time was what
Oh.
Ben,
I don't know if we had an argument.
well, not an argument, it was just- it was a
It's just the
statement.
argument I thought of.
Yeah,
So,
but it was that, right, they'll be elected, they'll fill a seat, but then we wait till the next actual like high turnout election. Because our off-season elections never get high turnout.
I think we should leave it as is.
Anyone feel strongly you get other? No?
just want to make sure that it's clear.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll make sure.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, that would be a question for later then, to make sure that that situation that you talked about is clear.
Mhm.
Because I thought that was my understanding, but I may not be reading it right, so. Okay. Okay, I think that's all we had then, and we'll open up for public comment again for our second section. Let me take 1 second, I have to read my script. Okay. It's now time for public comment portion of the meeting. Please remember, public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time to state your comments on a particular item. If you're joining virtually and would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in the webinar control panel. And if you are using a telephone, press *9. You will be called upon and asked for you to state your full name and city of residence for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and you'll be given a 20-second warning when your 3 minutes are almost up. At the 3-minute mark, the chair will ask you wrap up your final sentence, and you may resume watching the meeting or end your participation at that time. Do we have any public comment, Amy?
No one has officially signed up, but I suppose we could just take
Raise
them-
hands.
Raise hands.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, hi again. My name is still Todd Bachman. I still live at 4767 Beverly Lane. I just want to clarify a little bit. You are correct. I'm not surprised that most cities do have such things in their ordinances. Also, I don't think you'll find the taking land outside of city limits because it's a case law, not statutory constitutional law. But with that said, I think my point was Not that that you didn't have the legal right to do so. Just that I think just like we had gerrymandering clauses and making the judiciary independent and the various changes we made, that it's something we should do because it's the right thing, not that we are obligated. I mean, in some ways it does tie our hands, but in the same way that, when they came up with the US Constitution, they didn't say, well, hey, what if we did let people search because, who knows when we're going to need that right? Like, I think this is something we could amend if it's a problem in the future, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Good point.
Okay, thank you.
Want me to fill in something?
No, you just state your name. We're recording.
Hello, my name is Celeste Landry and I live in Boulder, Colorado. I sent you all an email earlier today and I've sent you a couple during this meeting. I know a lot about voting methods like the various forms of RCV, approval voting, star voting, proportional representation, and that's what I've been communicating with you about. And I apologize for not having listened to your previous meetings. So I'm speaking from what I've heard today, I guess. I did read some of your comments that were submitted. I don't know the reason for choosing districts, and so I want to go back and listen to those comments on why you've decided to choose districts. I understand like Broomfield has districts, and one of the reasons they have districts is because they came from 4 different counties. And so they have an identity with their former county, and you're in 2 counties. So I could understand 2 districts, I guess. I mean, I don't live here, I said. But I don't understand the 3 districts, and I'm curious to learn more. I did send you a comment that the House Bill 21-1071, which I worked on with Rep. Kennedy, is the enabling bill that requires county clerks to run instant runoff voting elections. That's a single winner, RCV. Requires the county clerks to run those for municipalities. It turns out Dominion, which has the software that both Boulder and Weld County use, it's just another little tab in their software. You just hit proportional multi-winner, and then you get the proportional RCV. So that should be included in the $70,000 a year that the state Secretary of State is going to charge all the people who use it, and it will be charged per capita. So Boulder and Broomfield should be paying the most. Boulder will only pay if they have a mayoral election because they only have 1 IRV election. So if they have only 2 people running, they won't pay anything. That's my understanding, at least. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions people have. I know this is not Q&A right now, but I'll leave you my card.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anyone online?
Nope, but
Oh, yep.
there's Solish.
Andrew Solish, resident at 824 Dakota Lane. So I just wanted to again thank you all for the efforts that you guys have been doing. This is now meeting 14. You have 1 on the weekend and 5 after that, so you have 6 left. So you guys have put in countless hours, have put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, but all the conversations that you guys have had have been wonderful to hear. So thank you all for what you're doing, and you guys are almost done. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No one online?
No one online. Okay. Well, I mean, if there's no objection from the commission, I'm good to adjourn.
I have to kill 15 more minutes.
Yeah. We can talk. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We're good.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.